Welcome to History Channel. Be sure to subscribe and like so you don't miss out on more videos like this one. High in the Dolomites during 1917, Italy's Bersaglieri troops moved swiftly through the rugged terrain on bicycles. Each carried a folding Bianchi Mod 1912 rifle, blending mobility with firepower. Their image symbolizes the adaptability of early 20th century warfare, where endurance and ingenuity met in the harsh Alpine front lines. In 1922, two women were escorted off a Lake Michigan beach for wearing swimsuits deemed too revealing. The moment captured the tension of changing social norms in the Roaring '20s, when women began challenging strict moral codes and modesty laws in pursuit of freedom and modern expression. At Brompton Oak on Marye's Heights in May 1864, wounded Union soldiers recovered after the brutal Overland Campaign. Captured by famed photographer Matthew Brady, the image reflects both the human toll and resilience of Civil War combatants, resting beneath trees that had witnessed unimaginable suffering. In late 1945 India, an Allied elephant lifted a heavy oil drum onto a C-46 transport plane bound for China. The scene shows the unusual yet vital role of animals in World War II logistics, bridging human innovation and nature's strength in the midst of global conflict. In 1970, Charles Tex Watson arrived in California following his extradition from Texas, a follower of Charles Manson. He was responsible for much of the killing during the infamous Cielo Drive murders. His capture marked a grim chapter in the close of America's turbulent 1960s. On May 18, 1952, Jackie Robinson stole home at Ebbets Field during a Dodgers vs. Cubs game. The daring play exemplified his fearless athleticism and determination. Beyond the base path, it symbolized Robinson's greater fight against racial barriers in American sports and society. On February 20, 1994, a resident fled from Beckersdale Township near Johannesburg as police deployed amid political violence. South Africa was nearing its first democratic elections, yet clashes still erupted, showing the fragile tension between hope for freedom and the lingering scars of apartheid. In 1994, the Deputy Mayor of St. Petersburg, Vladimir Putin, was photographed alongside former Soviet President Mikhail Gorbachev. The image quietly bridged two eras, one of collapsing socialism and another of emerging political ambition, foreshadowing the shifting power structures of post-Soviet Russia. Belgian Carabiniers advanced on August 20, 1914, pulling dog-drawn machine gun carts to resist the invading German army near Antwerp. The unusual sight illustrated both the desperation and creativity of early World War I defenses, when traditional armies struggled to adapt to mechanized warfare. During the Mexican Revolution in 1913, soldiers employed tactical deception to outmaneuver their enemies. Their strategies combined improvisation, terrain knowledge, and guerrilla warfare, reflecting how revolution reshaped not just politics, but also the very art of combat across Latin America's volatile landscape. On August 26, 1942, Jews without French nationality were arrested by Vichy authorities and sent to Venecio internment camp. Conducted without German involvement, this roundup led to deportations to Auschwitz, highlighting the tragic complicity of collaborationist regimes in Nazi-era atrocities across occupied Europe. In February 1911, the Hall of the Four Heavenly Kings at Linyin Temple near Hangzhou was photographed on glass. Plates by Chinese photographers accompanying Charles L. Freer, the image preserves a serene moment. In one of China's oldest Buddhist temples before the rapid modernization, of the 20th century. Around 1900, local workers labored in a Nassau quarry on New Providence Island in the Bahamas. Captured by photographer Jacob Frank Coonley, the scene offers a rare glimpse into the colonial-era workforce whose manual labor helped fuel the British West Indies' growing construction and export economy. Tsar Nicholas II of Russia, photographed around 1890, stands as a young monarch unaware of the turmoil ahead. His calm portrait contrasts sharply with the revolution and downfall that would later consume his dynasty, marking the end of centuries of imperial rule in Russia. In 1977, Pan Am Flight 1736 was photographed behind a KLM 747 at Tenerife Airport. Minutes later, both planes collided in dense fog, killing 583 people. The image became a haunting prelude to the deadliest disaster in aviation history, caused by miscommunication and tragic timing. On August 8, 1974, President Richard Nixon had his final lunch in office: pineapple, cottage cheese, and milk. That same evening, he announced his resignation on national television, marking the first time in U.S. history that a sitting president stepped down amid scandal. In August 1985, workers known as hormigueros, or ants, scaled the steep slopes of Serra Pelada in Brazil. With baskets of earth and dreams of gold, they formed a living chain of struggle and survival, turning the mountain into a monument of human endurance and inequality. On May 3, 1945, members of the 527th Bomb Squadron battled flames engulfing their B-17 Lucky Patch after a belly landing in England. Despite heavy damage, their teamwork saved lives. The smoldering bomber stood as a testament to courage in the final days of World War II. On May 1, 2003, President George W. Bush declared the end of major combat operations in Iraq aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln. Behind him, a banner read, "Mission Accomplished." The moment became one of the most debated symbols of early 21st century American military policy. In 1969, writer James Baldwin was photographed smoking a cigarette, his gaze thoughtful and defiant. The image captures a man whose words challenged racism, identity, and love in America, reflecting the tension and brilliance that defined his literary and activist legacy. In 1946, Abby Stockton lifted 135 pounds on the sands of Santa Monica, captured in Kodachrome. Known as the First Lady of Iron, she shattered stereotypes by founding California's first women's gym, inspiring generations to embrace strength and athletic freedom. On July 28, 1917, between 8,000 and 15,000, Black Americans marched silently down Fifth Avenue in New York, organized by the NAACP. The protest condemned racial violence and lynchings. The silence spoke louder than words, demanding justice and human dignity amid America's turbulent racial divide. In 1917, Russian Prime Minister Alexander Kerensky attended a military parade amid the crumbling Tsarist order. His brief leadership symbolized the fragile hope of democratic reform before the Bolsheviks' rise. As Russia teetered between revolution, war, and the end of empire. During the 1954 Army McCarthy hearings, attorney Joseph Welch confronted Senator Joe McCarthy with the famous words, "At long last, have you no sense of decency, sir?" The moment marked a turning point in America's battle against fear-driven politics and restored faith in public conscience. In 1940, German officers carefully inspected newly issued gear, ensuring readiness for the expanding war. Their attention to detail reflected the military discipline and precision that defined the early German campaigns. As Europe braced for years of unprecedented conflict and devastation that would reshape nations and generations alike. In May 1946, Poles expelled from Rudki near Elway were packed into cattle cars heading west. Over 1 million faced forced relocation from lands annexed by the USSR. Families carried what they could, leaving behind centuries of heritage and a painful redefinition of post-war European borders. After the Easter Rising of 1916, Sackville Street in Dublin lay in ruins. Smoke drifted from shattered buildings as British forces regained control. The rebellion failed militarily, but ignited a movement that would ultimately lead to Ireland's independence and a deep transformation of its national identity. In 1934 Louisiana, D.B. Napier's jailhouse photo captured a man whose past had come full circle. Arrested for rape and murder, he confessed to once aiding a lynching decades earlier. The irony and horror of his words shocked a nation still scarred by racial violence. Around 1960 in Bytom, Poland, a young boy walked near a massive power station. The image, taken by Zofia Ridit, reflects the stark contrast between human innocence and the industrial landscapes of post-war Europe, where daily life unfolded under gray skies of modernization and control. In 1950, President Harry Truman met with General Douglas MacArthur, commander of Far East forces. Tensions over the Korean War's direction simmered beneath their polite exchange. Just months later, Truman dismissed MacArthur, asserting civilian authority and marking one of the most dramatic leadership clashes in U.S. military history. In 1923, armed German separatists in the Rhineland proclaimed the short-lived Rhenish Republic during the French-Belgian occupation of the Ruhr. Their movement, driven by resentment and economic hardship, quickly collapsed, revealing the instability that plagued Germany in the turbulent years following World War I. In April 1967, near Quezon, Navy Corpsman Vernon Wilk cradled a mortally wounded Marine. Amid the chaos of Vietnam, his calm and compassion stood out. The image became a haunting reminder of the war's human cost and the quiet heroism found on the battlefield. On August 29, 1864, soldiers of the 9th Pennsylvania Cavalry posed proudly atop Lookout Mountain, Tennessee. The Civil War neared its end, yet their faces showed exhaustion and resolve. The backdrop of sweeping valleys symbolized both victory's promise and the immense price of preserving a divided nation. In 1982, Vincent Chin was beaten to death by 2 laid-off auto workers in Detroit. The crime, fueled by racial anger, ended with only fines and probation. The injustice outraged Asian American communities, becoming a pivotal moment in the fight for civil rights and equal protection under law. Around 1945, captured Japanese Prime Minister Hideki Tojo received blood from American doctors after a failed suicide attempt. Once one of Japan's most powerful wartime leaders, he was revived to stand trial for war crimes. A moment symbolizing both accountability and the uneasy balance between justice and humanity. In 1983, 7-year-old Terence Dow sat among teenagers, calmly solving advanced math problems in an Australian classroom. Decades later, he would become one of the world's most brilliant mathematicians. This early photo captured the quiet genius and extraordinary focus that would redefine modern mathematics. In 1952, Dominican dictator Rafael Trujillo watched as his brother Hector was sworn in as president. Though no longer officially in power, Trujillo continued to rule the country with an iron hand, maintaining absolute control through fear, loyalty, and a carefully staged illusion of democracy. In the summer of 1945, a beaten German woman stood by a roadside in Czechoslovakia. Known as the Lost German Girl, she was one of countless refugees displaced after the war. Her haunting expression reflected the deep suffering that followed the collapse of the Third Reich. Between 1986 and 1989, journalist Radosław Sikorski documented the Soviet-Afghan War from the mountains. His images captured the harsh landscapes and human toll of the conflict. Years later, he would enter politics, shaped by the courage and chaos he once witnessed on Afghanistan's battlefields. At a 1939 rally in New York, pro-Nazi Bund guards wrestled with Jewish protester Isidor Greenbaum, who had rushed the stage in outrage. The chaotic scene reflected the deep tensions within pre-war America, where fascist sympathies clashed with growing opposition to hate and extremism. In 1988, Osama bin Laden stood among Mujahideen fighters during the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. The photo shows a young militant leader rising from the chaos of war. Decades later, his ideology would shape global terrorism, leaving a shadow that extended far beyond these mountain valleys. Around 1942, young Chinese boys trained with wooden rifles in Hubei during the Second Sino-Japanese War. Under the strain of invasion, even children were prepared for defense. The image reflects a nation's desperate struggle for survival amid one of Asia's most devastating conflicts. In September 1945, 4 U.S. Navy carriers, Saratoga, Enterprise, Hornet, and San Jacinto, lined the docks at Alameda. Each represented a different class, marking the height of American naval power at the end of World War II, when victory at sea had reshaped the modern world. In August 1946, an ethnic German girl waited in a Czechoslovak transit camp before deportation. She was among millions displaced by post-war expulsions. Her uncertain expression mirrored the anguish of a generation uprooted from their homes in one of history's largest forced migrations. In the late 1800s, tourists and their guides climbed the massive stones of an Egyptian pyramid. The photo captures an era when early travelers sought wonder and adventure. Often unaware they were treading upon thousands of years of human history carved in ancient stone. In 1957 Nevada, a massive nuclear test vaporized the surrounding air, and a nearby blimp collapsed under the shockwave. The image stands as a powerful testament to the atomic age's destructive might and humanity's uneasy fascination with its own technological power. On November 23, 1888, the Eiffel Tower rose halfway above Paris, its iron lattice taking shape. The construction symbolized France's industrial ambition and modern spirit, transforming a controversial project into one of the most iconic landmarks in human history. In 1941, German soldiers inspected the gallows before executing captured Soviet partisans. The grim ritual revealed the brutality of occupation and the dehumanizing machinery of war, where justice was twisted into spectacle and mercy had no place on the front lines of the Eastern Campaign. In the 1980s, Burmese warlord Kun Se ruled the Golden Triangle's opium trade, amassing billions. His empire supplied nearly a quarter of the world's heroin. By 1996, he retired into legitimate business. His life a stark reflection of how power, crime, and politics intertwined in Southeast Asia. Around 1944, the cockpit of a B-24 Liberator revealed the complexity of wartime aviation. With countless dials and controls, it was a cramped command post in the skies. Each mission flown from these seats carried immense danger and the quiet courage of those who never returned.